Now, at first I thought this was AI, but then I remembered we live in a world where something new always happens and there's an excuse locked and loaded. This was uploaded by the Weather Channel. A rainbow, which for whatever reason has wrapped itself around a cloud. Never seen anything like it before, but again, the Weather Channel has an explanation. They say that this ultra rare phenomenon of iridescent clouds, which appears when sunlight interacts with lingering raindrops in the air after it rains. Now, one would think that sunlight interacting with lingering raindrops in the air after it rains is not a rare thing to happen. I'm sure it happens a lot. So why is this ultra rare event now just popping up?
Guys, ada fenomena alam guys. Lihat guys. Ini langit di atas jonggol ya. Ini masih jonggol, Bu. Ini langit di atas jonggol guys. Lihat guys langitnya guys. Keren guys. Keren guys. Apakah UFO? Apakah itu UFO?
So I really don't know how to feel about this research and study because we're coming up to some very interesting times involving quote unquote aliens. And a lot of us feel that there's going to be a big event, possibly a supernatural one. We are hearing the so-called powers that be more and more refer to these aliens now as demons for whatever reason. On the surface, it seems like these researchers are trying to understand why certain homes, houses have a haunted feeling to them, why certain people get easily creeped out. It sounds like a fun little experiment, but then my conspiracy theory senses started to kick in, and I try to make this channel more mystery, more paranormal, to separate it from minutes of horror, but when I read certain things, I just can't help it. I'm like, but anyway, reading this article from Gizmodo and other news agencies are talking about it. This article was published on April 27th, and it goes on to say, if you ever felt stalked by something seemingly not of this world, you're far from alone. And they go on to say that they can explain some of these encounters with the supernatural, and the answer may be more mundane. So what do these researchers do? Do they take certain people and bring them to older houses and work off of visual and physical clues and compare it to being in a newer house? No, what they do is they take a group of people and they hit them with frequencies. They're hitting these group of volunteers with frequencies so low that it brings out the worst in them mentally and emotionally, to the point where, again, it feels like they are experiencing some type of haunting. What they're testing is something called infrared sound, and it's defined as sound that's at or below 20 hertz in frequency. It's something that we cannot perceive, but at higher intensity, infrared sound can still be felt physically as pressure or vibrations. And so because people supposedly feel uneasy around this sound, it led them to want to experiment with this when it comes to haunted houses. This individual, Rodney Schmaltz, and his team have previously investigated the potential effects of infrared sound in notable scary locations, but this time they recruited 36 participants for a more controlled lab experiment. Again, this is where my conspiracy theory senses kick in, because are they really doing this experiment to see why homes are haunted, or are they hitting people at different frequencies to test how they will react when the bigger agenda is kicked in, something again like Project Bluebeam, because they will be going all out. Because listen to this, all of the volunteers were told to sit in a room while listening to either relaxing or creepy music. Half of the volunteers were also dosed with infrared sound 18 hertz provided by clandestine subwoofers. Before and after the session, they had their cortisol levels measured with a saliva sample and were surveyed about their mood. After the experiment, they were asked if they felt infrared sound had been played in their room. Those that were hit with this infrared sound felt more irritated and more disinterested, and also their salivary cortisol levels rose to a greater extent than those that were not hit with the sound. You know what this reminds me of too? That movie The Kingsman, where the villain distributed these SIM cards that emitted these specialized sound waves which bypassed the brain's neurological defenses and caused people to go absolutely crazy. They also want to make sure they asked those if they knew that the infrared sound was being used on them, and they said they did not. They knew that their emotions were changing, they did not know why, but they did not know about the infrared sound. But overall, these people were feeling creeped out. They were feeling scared and tense, as if something was near them or watching them. But here's something else as well. Infrared sound frequencies, especially around 18 to 20 hertz, and remember they hit these people with 18 hertz, can cause your eyeballs to vibrate, something known as ocular resonance, This vibration can create optical illusions, distorted vision, and hallucinations, often causing people to see ghostly figures out of the corners of their eyes. It's just very interesting timing for this experiment, and it could just be me always wanting to reach or connect the dots, but I really don't think this has anything to do with haunted houses. I mean, what would happen if they would take something like this, these frequencies, and target a mass population, target a city? What if they go even lower with the frequency of this infrared sound, because the lower they go, for example, around 16 hertz, the increase of inexplicable feelings of panic, anxiety, dread, and depression happen, and also people will start to perceive and see more and more ghostly shapes. But on the flip side too, this could be them making sure they have an excuse locked and loaded for something real that is about to happen that we're all going to experience and feel, and they'll have that excuse of, oh, it's just infrared sound and here's why this happened. They'll probably say that the earth was spinning faster or some kind of BS they usually use. And if a professor in a classroom with a $2,000 piece of equipment years ago can do something like this, imagine what they can do with frequencies today.
So we can't hear this. It's going, I haven't turned it on yet. When I do, it's going to blast out a 65 kilohertz beam. Because the wavelength is so small, it doesn't spread. Because 65 kilohertz has a wavelength like that. So it's going to be, in that sense, similar to a laser. It just comes right out as a beam. Now, how do we make that audible? Well, they put a modulation on top of the 65 kilohertz. There's a modulation. And now, here's the next thing I have to tell you. That 65 kilohertz is very high amplitude. It won't hurt you, we don't think. Okay? You certainly can't hear it, and we don't think it'll hurt you. And it's very high amplitude. And what happens when you have two sound waves like this, sound plus sound can create sound, but only at high amplitudes. At low amplitudes, sound waves just travel right through each other. You may be sort of familiar with this. But at high amplitudes, you can create sound. So what happens in this apparatus is the audio sound, the sound that you're going to hear, is actually created in the beam, not here. And because it's created in the beam and it stays in the beam, we have a beam of sound. So let me demonstrate this for you. Let me turn it on. And I'm going to find the piece of music that we like. Yeah. You may not like it.
The Eagles? You like the Eagles? Okay, good. Oh, we have a friendly audience this year.
Yeah. I think they're just saying that to make us feel better.
Right. All right.
It's worth the $2,000. It's not our money. Now, the sound that you're hearing is being created in this beam. It almost sounds like it's coming from your head. So let me try to scan the whole audience just so everybody gets to hear this. Absolutely remarkable. Pete, are you getting it? Let's try to, one more thing. Let's try to bounce it off the wall. Raise your hand if you can very clearly hear it. I'm going to try to bounce it off the wall. Look at where the hands are raised.
But moving on, I do want to go ahead now and talk about cryptids. Is something bothering the big feets? Is something causing Bigfoot to be restless? So back in March, there were about 8 to 9 different Bigfoot sightings in less than a week across multiple cities in Ohio. Reports saying these Ohioans were seeing an entity, a beast that was anywhere between 6 to 10 foot tall, hairy, and between the colors of red, orange, or black. Well, it seems like it hasn't slowed down, because as of April and May, people from Ohio are saying that they are hearing eerie howls, even capturing photos of enormous footprints.
A woman asking not to be identified, finding strange footprints across her yard.
Look at this one.
Deep in the mud, like something heavy made them.
Arches over, and then there it looks like a toe.
Baffling responding sheriff's deputies.
He said it was strange, too. He took pictures of the one behind you there, and he said, it's definitely something. Can't say what it is, but you definitely had something walking around here.
Others are telling the news that they have captured a howl from the Bigfoot that's different from other animals in the area, like, for example, this.
Actual unaltered audio. Some of it sounding like warning calls, he says.
If you heard that on big speakers, you could feel how big that is.
that even bioacoustics sound experts can't identify.
It's not a coyote or dogs or deers. It is no known animal in North America, and that some of those screams pegged higher than a baboon on the spectrograph, and that is evidence.
And of course, you have the people out there that are saying that they are actually seeing Bigfoot with their own eyes as well.
A bear.
Move like it was on some kind of stilts. It's a very weird way of moving.
Terrifying witnesses.
They're shook up. They're very emotional. They're like, I just want to stay anonymous.
In nearby Garrettsville, two hikers confronting something.
It was grunting at them. It turned its head, but it had to turn its head at the shoulders and not the neck, which is a very important detail that hardcore Bigfooters will realize that that's pretty crazy.
The descriptions vary.
Now, I don't know if these people in Ohio are truly encountering Bigfoot. I do think Bigfoot exists, whether in these deep underground military bases or something supernatural altogether. But one thing I do question is the lack of photo and video evidence. Not only do we have cameras everywhere like it's 1984 surveillance, but people do have cameras on them with their cell phone. But on the other hand, something is going on when it comes to these entities. More and more people are also seeing these pale crawlers. They're also being captured on camera. We have people encountering them and calling 911, and not just that, we have that story of that woman being attacked by that dog-like creature, which some suspect being a dog man. Wildlife experts, a sheriff saying they've never seen an attack of that magnitude in over 30 years. The DNA results came back saying it was just a domestic dog that attacked this woman, but someone made a good point. If there was a DNA test done and this creature was a dog man, then it would report back a dog. And this ramp up of encounters of all these different entities are happening in a span of less than a year. And if that is indeed true, something is causing them to appear more often. In the case of the Bigfoot in Ohio, they're saying it's the winter weather, the cold. I do too wonder if it's the ramp up and the expansion of data centers that might be causing a certain problem in certain areas as well. They could be destroying the natural habitat of these entities while the resources are being taken and funneled below.
The data centers are a cover-up. Let me explain. If you had a giant subterranean underground city and you needed to get large amounts of fresh water to it, how would you do that? You couldn't just take it. People would revolt. But if you convinced them that it was necessary and that the water was needed for data centers that would create jobs and a massive influx of money for the local economy, maybe people would think about it. I think our government knows about an event that's about to unfold. What that event is, I have no idea. But with all the dead space scientists, one can put two and two together.
But moving on, I do want to see what other people are talking about. This next creepy video comes from the Jody69.
I keep saying it over and over again. You need to start checking the food you bring home from grocery stores. And that includes sliced bread. And why do I say that? Because a woman was making sandwiches for her family when she opened up a loaf of Dave's Killer Bread. And what she found next was unbelievable. Take a look at this video for yourself.
This message is for Dave's Killer Bread and Dave's Killer Bread only. I don't know. Actually, this is a public service announcement, maybe. We're just... Too seriously. I was just about to feed a sandwich to my daughter when I was cutting the crust off of the sandwich, and there's actual wood chips.
Wood chips?
In the loaf of bread.
No.
And at first I was gaslighting myself. I was like, maybe it's some sort of like grain or oat or something. But no, it's for sure a wood chip, and they're like all throughout this bread. And I've gone through like literally the entire loaf now feeling for it. I thought it was just in one piece. Not that makes it better. But there's literal wood chips throughout our whole loaf of bread. So check your Dave's Killer Bread for wood chips.
Again, why you need to check your groceries, even if they're bagged when you bring them home. Wood chips inside of Dave's Killer Bread. Just imagine if she would have served that to her little baby without even paying attention. Because as you can see, Dave's Killer Bread has grains all over the outside of the bread. She decided to take the crust off so she can give it to her daughter. And that's when she found the wood chips. Once again, disturbing and scary at the same time. So take this as a PSA. Check everything when you open it, because you never know what you're going to find.
But what's interesting to know is that this is not the first time something like this has happened. This has happened multiple times. For example, this Reddit post right here where somebody found wood chips in their Oro Wet or Oro Wheat whole wheat bread. The scary part about this is the hazard. It's a choking hazard. It could pierce your mouth, cause splinters. But as far as it just being something outright nasty to find in your food, when it comes to the American food supply, as disturbing as this sounds, it's pretty low on the tier list, especially when you get into meats, and Soylent Green is people. Let's also not forget that shredded cheese, and I think Parmesan cheese too, but definitely shredded cheese, is also made out of sawdust so it doesn't clump. But hey, it can always be worse. Like, take for example,
after customers at a Wisconsin McDonald's found worms inside of their drinks. Now, this unwanted surprise happened to not just one, but 3 customers. Our Milwaukee affiliate, WTMJ, got these photos. One customer posted them to her Facebook page after finding this in the drink that she had ordered from a McDonald's in Paddock Lake. That's in Kenosha County. 2 other customers responded with similar findings, one saying that he had already taken a sip of the drink when he noticed that something fell off.
The worm came through the straw. It went into my mouth. I spit it out in my hand, and I was contemplating life because I've never had something that gross happen to me in my life. It's absolutely disgusting.
That's putting it lightly. Listen to this. A report from the Kenosha County Health Department states that tiles under the soda and ice machines were severely damaged. The department also says that workers told them that they had noticed worms coming out of a sewage outlet. Well, management says that they hired a pest control company. WTMJ contacted that McDonald's location directly. The manager said they're not permitted to comment. We'll be right back.
That's all we can do. Go to break.
This guy is me 100%. Not only did he sound like he wanted to cry, and I don't blame him one bit, but also I would just sit there and contemplate my entire life. I would just sit there and contemplate everything. I would just contemplate my life. He said it the best way possible. Like, what else is there to do besides sit there and just think? But this is why I stay away from McDonald's or any fast food. I know some people say this probably doesn't happen often. We usually don't hear these type of stories of worms being found in fountain drinks, but often you'll hear that these fountain machines at these places are not cleaned properly. And also, fast food as a whole is just nasty. Like, even the own CEO of McDonald's is disgusted just by having it in his presence.
A few posts about this, and I wanted to comment on it because I have a personal experience with it. It isn't something that's happening in the future, it's something that's happening now. I rented a car in Europe, and as the woman handed me the car keys, she said, "This is a brand new car," and she was like super excited about it. She was like, "It's 2026, it's a brand new car," and I was like, awesome, no one's had a chance to like fart or smoke in it, this will be great. And I'd driven it for a day or two, and I was getting on a highway. It was a 6-lane highway. And all of a sudden, the gas stopped working. And I'm pressing on the gas. I can't get the car to go. So the car is dinging. It's making all this noise, and I can't figure out what's going on. And I look at the dashboard, and in English, it says, "Sit up straight. We can't find your eyes." Why do you need to see my eyes? That was my first thought. And I'm short, so I sit low in the seat. And I guess, I don't know, maybe I'd been driving a while and I'd kind of slouch down more instead of sitting upright. And when I sat upright, the gas would work once again. And so I pressed the gas, but I was slowing down enough that it was going to cause a traffic hazard. And the thing is, it knew I wasn't asleep because I was pressing on the gas. So it knew I was awake. It just wanted to see my eyes. So once I sat upright and leaned forward, I guess it did facial recognition. And then it says, "May I send you these results to a third party?" To which I said, "No, you may not." No. Who is the third party? First of all, who's watching me drive the car to begin with? Secondly, who is the third party you're sending it to? And lastly, it is so dangerous. There are so many scenarios where losing control of the gas can put a car in a very dangerous situation. Like, what if I was pulling out in front of a semi-truck? What if I was going over a railroad track. And the absolute worst part is the argument for this is to combat sleepy drivers. And the truth is, if you fall asleep while you're driving, you're not going to be pushing down all the way on the gas. You're going to let up. You're going to relax. No one keeps their foot pointed while they're asleep. And if they say, well, what about cruise control? Then just take off cruise control. Disable cruise control in cars. That's the solution. Not, I need to see your eyeballs for the car to work. There's so many dangerous implications for this. But even if you're using it just for the good implication, sleepy drivers, we need to see eyeballs at all times, it's still wrong. It's still a stupid idea.
That creepy video came from Bianca Marsupial, and yeah, this is what's coming to the United States in 2027. All new cars will have surveillance in them to make sure that you're not either drunk or tired. They want to constantly monitor you under the guise of safety. They constantly want to have eyes on your eyes. Like Larry Ellison said, they want to make sure you're constantly on your best behavior. But what if you're not drunk? What if you're not tired? You just have a migraine, you're not feeling well, you look woozy, and you just want to get home. Will the car not start then? Or what if somebody's chasing you in an area, your heart rate's up, you're trying to do all you can to start your vehicle, but because the system, the AI, thinks you're acting a certain way you normally do not act, it might think you're on drugs or something along those lines and not start your car. There are a lot of questions to be had here.
Why on earth does the Hoover Dam need guardian figures? Please tell me y'all have heard this conspiracy theory about Hoover Dam being demonic. First, we're starting with these giant 30-foot tall statues of not angels but winged guardians that are randomly placed near the dam for protection. They're sitting on thrones. They're actually very similar to Egyptian sculptures. And that's because below them is an actual celestial map. And there are others placed throughout Hoover Dam mapping celestial bodies in accordance to celestial bodies in Egypt. Why does a power plant have this? I don't know. Here's the mapping of all of the placements for the celestial bodies. Other people point out how the Hoover Dam looks a lot like a throne. It's actually called the Devil's Throne to some people. If you're not new to conspiracy theories, the American government, the Illuminati, always reference Egyptians. And then there's this point right here. So over 100 workers died building the Hoover Dam. And it was a big rumor back then that they were putting these bodies inside of the construction of the dam. These are just rumors. They haven't been proven to be facts. But another really weird thing with the construction of this is the first person who lost their life at the construction was the father of the last person to lose their life during the construction of this, which is really weird. Now, this makes a lot of sense if you look at the conspiracy side of things because they were said to be sacrifices. So is the Hoover Dam some sort of ritualistic place? Or what exactly is going on here? Why is there so much symbolic stuff with this power plant?
That video came from Whoa That's Strange, and a lot of interesting locations around the United States have a lot of interesting quote-unquote artwork, like for example the Denver airport. And also the Denver airport has its own eerie sacrifice in the form of that blue horse called Blucifer. It actually fell on top of its sculptor, its creator, and ended his life.
What if I told you that the aliens and UFOs we've become so accustomed to are actually us from the future? Now, this is what Amy Eskridge, the anti-gravity researcher, which was unalive shortly after, was talking about. Check this out.
So the ultra-terrestrials, I'll just tell you. The ultra-terrestrials, I think, have you heard of the P-52s and the P-47s? Do you know what that is? They're us from the future. They're from here. They are you. They are me. They're from here, from the future. P-47 is present plus 47,000 years. P-52 is present plus 52,000 years. And basically there's a calamity, right? So there's like a apocalypse scenario in the near future. It wipes out most of like everything, man. And there's the ones that go underground and survive, right? And then there's the ones that somehow stay on the surface and miraculously don't die.
Now, this makes you wonder why all the billionaires and trillionaires are starting to build bunkers under the ground, trying to protect themselves from an inevitable cataclysmic event that's on the horizon. And then it kind of ties back into Project Looking Glass, which has been alluded to, that actually they are using this aspect to see what happens in the future. Or these P-47s or P-52s are coming back, trying to tell certain individuals about these cataclysmic events or trying to change something from happening, but then inevitably it might be these P-47s, which are the surface level people like me and you guys, trying to help the past for this situation to not unfold, versus the P-52s, which are probably the underground individuals that don't want this to kind of be sorted out, which is all these billionaires and trillionaires, and they look chopped AF, mate. So maybe that's what's going on. There's a big battle between us in the future on the surface and those below as well, the lizards, mate. Is there infinite realities of us in the future which have developed technologies which is able to kind of pass through time and space? And a lot of what we're seeing is actually different versions of ourselves on an infinite scale coming back and interacting with our planet, basically. Now, from my abduction experiences and from my UFO experiences and families and friends as well that we've seen in proximity, ours is wildly different from grey alien encounters. But from historical grey alien sides of it, it seems to be that whatever these beings are abducting people have either been taking samples biologically from semen, ovaries, skin, organs, fingernails, or whatever it may be that these beings have basically no longer have, and they are kind of mixing with our current species now to kind of bring back some of those evolutionary traits that they've lost thousands of years down the line. Is entirely plausible in my mind. I don't know. What do you guys think?
That video came from the Interstellar Discussion, and not to take anything away from Amy Eskridge and her very mysterious and suspicious passing, but I find it interesting where we are now when it comes to these aliens. First, they were creatures from another planet. Before then, there were swamp gas, weather balloons, creatures from another planet, to being now interdimensional entities, demons, fallen ones. Now they're trying to make a case that they are humans from the future. Maybe there's multiple types. Maybe there are ones that can manipulate time. But I do find it interesting the varieties we get when it comes to these quote-unquote aliens as time progresses.
You don't believe angels are real? You will after you see this picture. Just a moment, I'm going to show you what I believe to be one of the best pictures of an angel ever taken. Before I show it to you, I want to go over a couple things because I know I'm going to hear this in the comments. I know, according to the Bible, biblically speaking, angels are actually a weird-looking creature, the way the Bible portrays them. Big eyeballs, round, not what we think with the wings and the halo. But the picture I have for you today is what we think an angel would look like with the wings. And I believe that is also biblically accurate, and here's why. We know from the book of Hebrews that it tells us that we can entertain angels unaware. We know throughout Scripture they appear as people. I believe angels can manifest in whatever way is necessary, even if it's what is portrayed in paintings and in books here on Earth. They can appear in whatever way is necessary to fulfill their mission. In this picture that was submitted by a follower, you can see a house burning down. And this guy's mother used to live there who sent me the picture. And she unfortunately passed away a few days prior to her house catching on fire. He was there watching the fire departments put out the fire, and he took pictures, and there's something at the bottom. You can clearly see what looks like an angel, the way that we see them in books and on TV here on Earth, with the wings. Now, again, I know biblically speaking, that's not how they're portrayed, but I do believe this is an angel who was there to comfort that family. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great day. God bless.
That video came from the Paranormal Sleuth, and yeah, that to me looks like what most people would connect as a angel. But we do know what we're told is different than what's biblically accurate. And angels have been known to take human forms, so maybe it's possible they take these other forms as well, something that is more easily recognizable.
What actually happened to this guy? Because his story has me convinced that aliens might be real. Because tell me how this man just vanishes into thin air and then reappears 15 months later, 700 miles away with no recollection of what's going on. This is Stephen Kubacki. He was 23 years old at the time, an avid outdoorsman, and he was taking a solo skiing trip near Lake Michigan. When he never returned home from his trip, they sent out a search party. They found his backpack and his skis, and then they saw footprints leading towards the lake, but then the footprints just disappeared as if he vanished into thin air. It was at this time investigators just believed that he simply fell into the lake and drowned. So his family was mourning his death. They hadn't seen him in 15 months. And then he just wakes up in a field 700 miles away in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He's wearing clothes he doesn't recognize. He has a bag that he doesn't recognize filled with like maps and things. There was a huge media frenzy after this, but he kind of shut down and didn't want to talk about what had happened, which I find very odd. People claim that this may be from head trauma. Some people say that he was just going through like some psychosis or that he was trying to get away. But how do you go 15 months with nobody recognizing you, especially when you're a missing person? Stephen is not the only person this has happened to, though. Back in 1991, this guy, Vasile Gorgos, was a Romanian farmer that bought a train ticket to go do some like livestock business. He left his house and never returned. His family contacted authorities. There was a huge missing person case for him. They searched endlessly. Eventually, the case went cold, and it wasn't until 30 years later that he returned back at his house with no recollection of what happened over the last 30 years. The strangest part, though, was he was still wearing the exact same outfit and still had the exact same train ticket. His family said that that wasn't the oddest part, though. Despite him buying this train ticket 30 years ago and it being in his backpack all this time, it was in mint condition. Like, it looked brand new, but it was a train ticket dated back for 1991. These are just two of the cases that I've read of this, but there are multiple people that go missing for years and years and years with no recollection of what happened. Have you all ever heard of these cases? What do you think this is? I personally think aliens. I mean, what else could it be?
Something tells me this is going to be the exact story with a lot of these missing scientists. They're going to reappear and they're going to say that something happened to them that's going to connect along the line of aliens and UFOs, and this is going to play into that agenda. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.